It's time for another reviewing your underwater films episode, and in today's episode we will watch a film made by Roshard Davis. Hi and welcome back to the Underwater Filmmaking School and today's video of the series reviewing your underwater films. As always, I'm gonna put the YouTube account and the video of Roshard Davis in the video description below, so you can go and pay his account a visit as well. But now, without any further ado, let's dive into his video and watch that together. So we are in Mexico, in the cenotes, one of my favorite places to dive. So we get a bit of a context here of where we are. Alright, and here we go. I'm assuming this is Roshard filming himself as he's descending down for the dive. So this is not him filming, unless he's not the guy in the image there. And you just gotta love those light rays coming into the water on these dives. It's beautiful. That shot before was a little overexposed and now we're getting darker. This is always a challenging situation to film when the environment itself is pretty dark and then you have flashlights, torches that go through the image, and most cameras really have trouble with the exposure when that happens, especially if the flashlight shines into the camera itself. So whenever possible you want to avoid having a flashlight shining into your camera lens. That's just gonna screw up the exposure, in particular if you're working with auto exposure. Look at that, pretty cool. Those light rays, they're just magical. I like the music, Roshard, well picked. This is kind of mystical, goes well with the theme. Yeah, look at that light ray. It just disappears into nowhere. And we're back on the surface. Alright, not finished yet. We're getting out of the water. Mm-hmm.
Tall enough, you can just stand up. I'm tiny.
Alright, Roshard, let's quickly talk about your film. Well, first of all, thanks for submitting your film and for allowing me to review that film here in this series. All in all, I think that it is a nice impression of the cenotes, and you've captured some of the magic that happens when you dive in these places quite well. There is a few things that I would have done differently. Let's start at the beginning and the end of the film. I think that the beginning, that's quite okay to give a bit of a sort of an impression on where you are and to let people know where you're diving. I probably would have kept it a little shorter. It took a little too long for me until you got actually into the water and started diving through the cenotes. The same applies to the end of your dive. I think that the last sort of 20 seconds or so when people were getting out of the water, kind of not really, it didn't really add any value to the film itself, and I personally would have probably left it out. I mean, the film itself was about 4 minutes and something, so it would have not hurt the film if you cut out a few seconds at the beginning and maybe 20-25 seconds towards the end. You could have just as well ended with you surfacing back after or surfacing at the end of the dive. That would have just worked perfectly to sort of round up the entire dive. Story-wise, it wasn't much, to be honest. It was basically you going through that dive, which is fair enough, and it works and it's good. But you could have made this into a little more of a sort of a storytelling, I think. But I know sometimes it's not easy to do that, especially if you've only got the material of one dive. It can be challenging to put it into a story that actually tells a story, or into a piece that tells a story. The imagery looked very nice. I think that the colors looked nice. Your camera work was fairly stable. If I'm not mistaken, it was not just you filming, but you also passed on the camera to the dive guide occasionally, and he was filming some parts of it. But I couldn't really tell any difference from the stability. His footage as well as your footage seemed to be fairly stable, and that looked quite nice. What I would have probably tried to do is give the light rays that were penetrating the cenotes and coming through the water, I would have tried to make them more dominant and just have more shots of these light rays in a variety of different angles and perspectives, because that's what's really magical about diving in these places, is how the light penetrates the water, the light play that happens, all that sort of stuff. So if I can give you 2 tips for the next film that you're making is think about the storyline, the story that you want to tell, and don't be afraid to cut out pieces here and there to slim down your film. It's not always a good idea to make it as long as you possibly can. Shorter is most of the time better, and also think about capturing different angles. In this case, it would have probably been really cool to have you below filming up to the surface as your dive guide, for example, swims over the camera, and you would have had the dive guide's silhouette with the sun rays coming in to the water. That would have been, I think, a really, really cool shot. So think about creativity and different angles when shooting underwater in the future. I really liked the choice of music. The music that you've picked fitted very well to the environment and to the mood that you were trying to convey. So I really liked that. And as I said before, I really liked that your footage looked very stable for most of the time. So hopefully these tips will help you, Roshard, to improve on your underwater filmmaking in the future. And again, thank you so much for submitting your film and allowing me to review it in this series. If any one of you out there guys wants to have their underwater films reviewed as well, please feel free to send me an email to contact@matthiaslebo.com with the link to the film that you want me to review, and I'll be more than happy to review the film as quickly as I can. And that's it guys for today's video. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching with me. If you want to pay Roshard a visit, as I said before, I'll leave his YouTube channel and the link to the video in the video description below. So feel free to hop over to his channel and say hi from me. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much guys for tuning in and watching Roshard's video with me. If you want to pay him a visit and say hi, I'll leave his YouTube channel and the link to the video in the video description below. If you want to check out the other videos that I've reviewed in this series, they will be linked here in this playlist. And that's all I have to say for today. Until next time, happy bubbles, enjoy capturing your underwater adventures, and I will see you next week.